facial. I feel good. My hair is still wet, but it's okay. We're living, we're learning, we're fine. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to another episode of The Casual Nerd. We have a lot to go over today, so get your drink of choice and let's sit down and get into this. I want to go over something really quickly before we get into any of it. There's an article that was sent to me by my friend Tanya. Tanya, thank you so much for sending this to me. There's stuff that I mentioned before of my discussion on Kotaku and my friend Natalie and everything that's going on with her. I wanted to point something out to you guys, maybe to bring a little more light to the situation at hand, because I feel like it's such a... Oh, how do I want to phrase this? It's so two-faced. That's the word I want to use. It's two-faced. Geomedia, I think it's an editorial house, correct me if I'm wrong, people who know about Geomedia. It is an editorial house that houses Kotaku amongst other types of journalist places. So, accuracy in updating and editing, error correction, anonymous sources, conflicts of interest, fairness, independent contractors, language and tone, legal matters, outside work, plagiarism and fabulism, reporting on ourselves, social media, sourcing, transparency, compliance with these policies, and appendix. Now, I want to point something out. Very, very interesting. In the section where it states accuracy and updating error correction, I want to point something out. It says the pursuit of the truth requires that we are accurate in all we write and say. From the slightest fact to the broadest context, writers are responsible for the accuracy of their published output regardless of format and distribution platform. But everyone who touches a copy during editing shares in that responsibility. So, the article that was written on Natalie on Kotaku, the fact that it's still up breaks several of their rules in their editorial policy in accuracy and updating and error correction, which updating error correction, I find it hilarious that they have this on here, but Kotaku will not take down the article that was written on Natalie Lawhead. And then there's another section over here, legal matters. Don't need to go into that. That's pretty self-explanatory with Kotaku. Transparency. Another thing. They're not being transparent with their audience. They're not being transparent with anyone. The people who they even covered. They are not being transparent. Here, let me go over to that section just so you guys get it. It states here in the subsection for transparency, decisions about what we write about and how we undertake the work are made solely by our writers and editors. Advertisers have no sway or over coverage. We will disclose any commercial relationships the company has that might appear to influence our coverage. Readers must never wonder if we are telling them something because we are paid to do so, rather than think they should know. Nor should we be put off asking hard questions because we have created a business relationship with a source. This little thing over here that says, nor should we be put off asking hard questions. Yeah, okay, so that's why Kotaku has been ignoring several tweets over the past year and a half from Natalie, asking them very nicely to take down the article that was written about her. Gotcha. Just want to point some of that out. Do with this information what you will. The article on the editorial policy will be down in the description below, where you guys can see all the editorial policies that they have on their page, and you guys can understand that, this is up. And I just want to say this, I do have a bias in this. Natalie is my friend. She is the person that I am vouching for in this instance. She is an amazing human being who deserves to have some peace of mind, So taking down the article is one of the best steps in doing that, I feel. Alright, so let's get into some gaming news. I found some interesting stuff. You guys killed it again, per usual, in the Discord. I really appreciate you guys. First thing we're going to get into is, oh gosh, there's so much to choose from. We're going to go into some Apple gaming first, and as you guys can see in the lovely header, Apple rumored to be working on a hybrid games console. I don't know why that leaves a sour taste in my mouth, but it also leaves me feeling hopeful because I know they can possibly create something outstanding. So it states here in the article that there are some very interesting rumors doing the rounds about Apple developing a hybrid games console. According to the grapevine, and stemming initially from Hong Kong-based sources, Apple is developing a Nintendo Switch-like console. If such a prospect isn't tantalizing enough, the whispers indicate that the console will be based upon a completely new SoC family, not the A or M Apple Silicon series, with a high-performance GPU which features ray tracing support. Apple developed a game console way back in the 90s, a famous flop dubbed in the Apple Pippin, made by the collaboration of Bandai, and after that confrontation with the reality of the game's hardware market, Apple seems to have steered clear and stayed firmly in its lane of content creation for Macs and consumption/light-duty creation for its iDevices. Now perhaps the games market is such a sparkling jewel that Apple could not help but to covet it. Does it need something more than Apple Arcade to do so? If the headlining rumors are correct, then yes. I think this is actually pretty cool. I mean, we have Apple Arcade, and that's really amazing to see companies innovating and doing new things all the time. I really love that. That's how business grows. Apple is a multi-million-dollar company, so I mean, it's growing already. But you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those concepts that a company still has room to improve, and they still have room to grow, and they still have room to do such amazing things when it comes to business ventures, their clients, their customers, whatever it may be. They have room to encompass all aspects of everything that is tech, and I think that's absolutely amazing. So next up in gaming news, we're gonna go into Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, I have not heard of this game until I saw the article and I decided to cover it. As you guys can see in the header, it states Beyond Good and Evil 2 still in development but won't be releasing anytime soon. So I feel like this is a new way of game development and game culture. We're gonna get announcements about games, but it's gonna be attached with that little addendum saying not releasing anytime soon or not releasing until the very near future, however they want to phrase it. So it states here in the article that Ubisoft's financial earnings report has revealed that the game's currently due to release during the next financial year, as well as reporting a delay for Skull and Bones. However, it's also confirmed that games won't be releasing for quite a while yet. One of those titles is Beyond Good and Evil 2, thankfully still in progress despite reports of being stuck in development hell. One describes as a quadruple A next-gen experience. In the months before release of the PlayStation 5, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has courted a lot of controversy. A collaboration with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's hit record company that aimed to crowdsource artwork and music for the game created a backlash over compensation, or rather lack thereof, for creators. A playable beta originally scheduled for 2019 never appeared. The game's Hindu imagery has drawn concerns and will require an internet connection at all times. Finally, Beyond Good and Evil 2 director Michael Ansel left the game and the industry altogether following allegations of toxic behavior. It's no wonder we haven't seen anything from the game in years, but at least we know the open world title remains part of Ubisoft's, in quote, significant portfolio expansion to come, end quote. And there's so much that's going on right now currently with Ubisoft. I mean, if that wasn't interesting enough, it states here in something I literally just saw on Twitter, Ubisoft's survey reveals that 25% of employees have seen or experienced workplace misconduct. CEO Yves Guillemot promises that changes will take place. Ubisoft has always been shady. I mean, their games are fantastic, but they've always had this kind of air about them, which I won't get into in this topic, at least not until next week, until I know more about what's going on, because this morning when I woke up to like a flood of tweets and seeing Ubisoft literally on the chopping block. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I can't say right now. I don't have enough information to go off of, so that's my piece on it. So next up in gaming, as you guys can see by the next header, the games industry just talked about outsourcing crunch and totally missed the point. This article is very interesting. I expect you all to read it down in the description below. Yes, I am giving you homework. That is me. Huggable teacher. Hipster. Teacher. Sesanim. Now, it states here in the article that a couple of months ago, we published a video for People Make Games that investigated working conditions at 2 outsourcing studios in Southeast Asia. These companies, Lemon Sky Studios from Malaysia and Brandeville Studios from Indonesia, are both routinely hired by AAA publishers to create huge amounts of art assets for some of the biggest video games in the business, from Gears of War 5 to The Last of Us Part 2. And according to that investigation, these studios are also relying heavily on extensive overtime or crunch in order to get this work done. Based on the accounts of 19 current and former employees, the video details working environments in which artists have little choice but to volunteer for unpaid work overtime in order to meet unrealistic deadlines. This is an unfortunate part of the gaming industry where we see crunch time. Unfortunately, it's happening a lot, and unfortunately, so much more is being brought to light that you can't help but to feel like, oh my god, is this every game studio? It's not every game studio. It is a percentage of game studios, but it's an issue that needs to be controlled by, I feel like, the companies that are hiring these sources, you know? So it's one of those things of where, like, you know, the company that I used to work at, they had crunch time. So it's really interesting to see on a more massive scale how it's being done. It's scary. So next up in gaming news, we have some GTA news. I don't normally cover GTA considering the fact that it's my least favorite game besides Fallout 3. I played GTA once, and I played it for a couple of hours with a former friend of mine, and this was back when I was in college, and the amount of just, my gosh, lack of story, just anti-women, misogynistic overall tones, it's reeked with it. So, and just the fact that it's not fun. I mean, for me personally, I know there's a lot of people who like GTA, but it's not my cup of coffee. So it states here in the header, GitHub reverses takedown of reverse engineered GTA source code. Which this article I found very, very interesting. It states here in the article that the reverse engineering source code for the PC versions of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City is back online today, months after it was originally posted and then quickly taken down due to a DMCA request from publisher Take-Two. Torn Freak reports on the restored version of the project, which was posted as a seemingly identical fork of the original by a New Zealand-based developer named Theo. While the original GitHub poster, who goes by the handle AAC, has not contested Take-Two's original takedown, Theo told Torn Freak he filed a counterclaim to restore his copy of the project, saying it contained no code owned by Take-Two. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I'm gonna be 100%. I do not know much about Grand Theft Auto enough to comment fully on the situation. I'm covering this mainly because I know that there are some Grand Theft Auto fans who do watch my content. So if you guys have any remarks on this article and you guys want to go into it in the comments section to explain more to people like me who do not know much about Grand Theft Auto and this situation, because I found, listen, this was sent to me as an article, and I'm really, like, honestly wanting to make my more content more diverse. Even though I may not know much about the game at hand, I love being able to start conversations down in the comments below about it to not only educate myself but other people as well. So yeah, if you are a fan of Grand Theft Auto and know about the situation and want to read the article down in the description, feel free to, because whenever I look at situations like this about a DMC takedown of, like, it's battle of the takedowns over here, and it's just, part of it is hysterical, to say the least. So next up in gaming news, PlayStation leak accidentally reveals 2 PS5 games. So it states in the article that 2 PS5 games have been leaked ahead of their reveal, courtesy of the Taiwanese rating board, which rates games for release in Taiwan. This week, the rating board published PS5 ratings for both Chaos in Deponia and Anna's Quest. According to the rating board, the former is also coming to the Xbox Series, while the latter is also coming to Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch as well. Unfortunately, the rating board didn't disclose any additional salient information, such as release dates. That said, when games are rated for release like this, it typically not only indicates an announcement is imminent, assuming they haven't already announced. However, the Taiwanese rating board does have a reputation for rating games for release earlier than other rating boards, which is why they often leak so many games. For those that don't know, both games come the way of Dedalek Entertainment, the former Chaos in Deponia, released back in 2012, and is currently available on PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Meanwhile, the latter, Anna's Quest, hit back in 2015, and is currently only available on PC. Below you can read more about the games as well as check out the trailers for both games. What you guys can read in the article, it gives like all the stuff down below, which you guys can check out. It's pretty cool. So the next one is some Resident Evil news. And as a lot of you guys know, I finished playing Resident Evil, which the review will come out next Wednesday, and over the weekend it will be on Patreon. So if you guys haven't yet, please be sure to sign up to the Patreon. I actually added a new tier where you guys can see my videos a few days early, which it will be an unlisted link on the Patreon instead of like a full-on private video and everything like that, because then I have to add people and it just gets unnecessarily tricky for no reason. So it states in the header that Resident Evil Village has an accessibility problem, and in the subheader it states that the writer so eloquently put, Capcom doesn't even try to make Resident Evil Village accommodating, which already tells me that going into this article they have a bias. Now this is from the perspective of the writer, so if you're hearing in first person, that's because that's how it's written in first person, obviously. So it states in the article, my excitement when booting up Resident Evil Village was palpable. It was one of my most anticipated games of 2021, as I'm sure it was for many of you reading this, but it had a glaring problem right off the bat that left a sour aftertaste in my mouth. After a couple of hours in, it hasn't quite dissipated. There are no accessibility options in the menu. Zilch. That's unacceptable. Games have been making strides in improving their choice of settings so that anybody and everybody can play. What the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart being a bastion of this push, going from the revelation of all those intricate, well thought out settings that champion accessibility only last week to this is like whiplash. Ratchet & Clank lets you add a shader to clearly see your player character, but this also extends to enemies, bosses, obstacles, and collectibles with a ton of colors on offer. There's a toggle motion for blur, customizable HUD, assistance for attacks, trigger pulling and aiming, and that's just a few to name off choice. For Ratchet & Clank, it's clear the accessibility is a huge point of concern for Sony and Insomniac altogether. And this has been evident for a while, with Last of Us Part 2 as a pioneer. Despite these strides, Capcom is stuck in the past with next to zero choices. You see, I find this really interesting. This person isn't as much talking about Resident Evil as they are talking about and comparing Resident Evil to other games. One thing that I've noticed, and this is why this article left a sour taste in my mouth, which, while I agree there needs to be more accessibility options in the game Resident Evil, there comes a point when you do writing that you have to be very careful of how you word things and how your phraseology is, because someone can take it one way and another person can take it a completely different way. For me, the way I take this article is that this person is simply just complaining. And that's, to say that wanting accessibility is complaining. That's not what I'm saying at all. I love the fact that people are noticing these things and they're addressing them, but it sounds like it's coming off as just, oh, well, it's not like these other games, so therefore it's invalid. That's how it comes off to me, at least. I don't know about you guys. Let me know down in the comments below what your guys' thoughts are. For the last article, actually there are a couple more articles I wanted to share with you guys, but I don't have time to exactly read them in this episode, so they will be down in the description below for your viewing pleasure, as well as everything else I read in this video. Wolfire Game founder, I had no choice but to file Steam antitrust lawsuit against Valve. Wolfire Games founder Dave Rawson claims they had no choice but to take legal action against Valve after the Steam creator allegedly began interfering with pricing on other storefronts. The Overgrowth developer filed an antitrust lawsuit against Valve in April after taking issues with the extraordinarily high cut of revenue it takes from Steam developers. The lawsuit also called out Valve for allegedly using Steam to create an unaccessible monopoly on PC game distribution. Now, Rosen has expanded on these allegations in a new blog post, claiming they personally experienced the conduct described in the complaint. When new video game stores were opening that charged much lower commission than Valve, I decided I would provide my game Overgrowth at a lower price to take advantage of the lower commission rates. I was intended to write a blog post about the results, wrote Rosen. This is a very tricky situation because it unfortunately has to do with bigger companies. Everybody wants money, everybody wants this, and you get into kind of like this cluster F of different situations, right? I could literally spend an entire episode talking about this because of how big it is, because Steam is a big company, it houses thousands upon thousands of games from AAA to indie developers. Now you guys will be able to, in the article, click to see the blog post and everything like that. This to me is new news. I know people have had problems with Steam before and everything like that, but this I'm kind of at a loss for words, because Steam, I always knew them to be a good website. I always knew them to be very trustworthy, but there's so many different aspects, right? I'm looking at it from the consumer standpoint. The developer has an entirely different story and standpoint that they're looking at it from. And it, again, I know that I used this word before in this, in this video, but it's kind of two-faced, right? You see some companies that have so much clarity and so much upfrontness about their work ethic and what they do, and then you have situations like this where it's really frightening to see. Not only does Steam take extraordinarily high cuts of the revenue, it states here at the top where I was reading before that it began allegedly interfering with pricing on other storefronts, which means that they can change the prices up and down whenever they want. And I understand that that's how they create sales for products, that's how they do this. But if it's allegedly to like manipulate the pricing structure the way it benefits Steam more so than it does the developer, that's wrong. Again, this is all allegedly. It states here it's all allegedly. So, in my opinion, there's a lot that needs to be dealt with here, and I feel like this isn't the last time I'm going to be covering this. But you guys, that was it for this episode of The Casual Nerd. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below, because I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. This week, please, okay, it's already Friday. I still have so many more videos for you guys that are coming, not only after this video, because I'm thinking it's going to be a triple upload day. I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that way. If not, then, not. But we already had Resident Evil, now it's Casual Nerd. What next? Nobody knows. But stay casual nerd, you guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, you guys.